Welcome, this is Najma Minhas with Global Village Space. I'm joined today with the Chairman of CPEC Authority, General Asim Bajwa. General Asim, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
General Sahab, I'd like to start off with asking you, why do you think there was a need to create a CPEC authority? Because we already had CPEC since 2015. So why 5 years later?
I think this was out of the experience of those 5 years. Because CPEC's scope is now expanding, and there's so much work to do, so many ministries involved, and then the provinces and all federating units are involved. Therefore, I think the government felt that they needed one window operation where you could have the foreign investors come and get their job done from one place. You know, what has happened as a result of this establishment, that every Chinese company and every official of the embassy who comes in for any project which is part of CPEC or is planned for CPEC, they come to the authority, and then we have officials here who do the running around. They go to the ministries, we coordinate, and we get things done in an expeditious way.
What is your mandate? I mean, have you given a particular mandate? Is it to deal with the day-to-day running of CPEC, or is it also to work on the strategic decision-making with regards to CPEC?
Well, I would say basically the emphasis of CPEC authority is more in the implementation of projects.
Okay.
But we also do planning, then we do evaluation of the projects, we do monitoring. What I would like to emphasize here is that whatever we plan for CPEC is in consonance with the overall master planning of the country, which is done by the Planning Commission of Pakistan. So we work very closely with Planning Commission, being part of Ministry of Planning. So it becomes easier for all of us to coordinate and then come up with a project. So it's all synchronized, planned in one overall frame. And then we pursue the implementation, and then we also monitor.
So you've been in this role now for almost 10 months, and I know that we've had Corona during this period. But what would you say is the biggest achievement that you've achieved during this period?
Well, I would say there were so many projects where we had hiccups for years. So we could go to all federating units physically, we could talk to them, and we could resolve. I don't think there is any outstanding issue of any project left now.
Okay.
But the biggest project, if you ask me, in the last few months that we've done, or ever since start of the CPEC, has been ML1.
Okay.
You know, all due processes have been completed, the evaluations have been done, estimations have been reviewed, and it has now come to $6.8 billion after the entire process. So it's a very good project. It's a historic, monumental project for logistics, for infrastructure in Pakistan. And I see that every business is going to become viable as far as the freight traffic through railway is concerned. But it's also going to bring a revolution in the passenger movement from between Karachi and Peshawar.
Okay.
So, you know, the traveling time between Lahore and Karachi is going to reduce from 13-14 hours to maybe 6-7 hours, 8 hours.
What is the timeline you have in mind for completing that particular project?
Well, ML1 is a huge project, and it's 1,870 kilometers. This is spread in phases over a period of 7 to 9 years.
Okay.
But what I've seen is that in the progress of the CPEC project, there are many projects which get done before the timeline set for it.
So if we look back a little bit between 2015 and 20, what are the major achievements that CPEC has accomplished so far?
Well, when CPEC was started, it was started with filling the voids in our infrastructure, both in energy and in communication infrastructure. So we have made a lot of progress in the energy projects, and I don't think we have any shortages in availability of energy today. Although there are other issues which are now being addressed, and some of them are coming as part of CPEC, like transmission of that power that we've started producing now. So similarly, in communication infrastructure, there are motorways, there are roads which are coming up, which have come up, but now we've gone for even smarter model, where we're going into public-private partnership in the financial model, and we're tendering it openly.
How much investment have we seen so far that's come into the country?
Well, if we see in energy alone, we have about $8 billion already in the commission projects. But then we have another $9.5 billion which are now currently under execution. Similarly, when we talk of communication infrastructure, we have over $4 billion already invested. And we have another over $3 billion which will be now coming into execution very soon, are already under execution.
You know, it's interesting that we talk about CPEC as a point in time, like I mentioned to you that, you know, from 2015 onwards, or 2014 when the MOU was signed. But I remember I was in New York City in 2001 and 2 at Columbia University at the time, and we were already talking about an economic corridor that was being created between Pakistan and China. So is there a history behind the whole CPEC project?
Well, I would say that a history between China and Pakistan for CPEC is as old as our relationships with China. And if you remember, we had the Karakoram Highway come up in 70s, and there was a great collaboration between the Chinese engineers and Pakistan's Frontier Work Organization, which were actually raised for that monumental project. So we completed that road and connected with China. This dream actually is a carry forward of KKH, and we just went through the history. There was movement in year 2000, and then there was a movement in 2002, then there was a Beijing Declaration in 2003, and then we had groundbreaking of the Gwadar port itself, and then connectivity of the Gwadar port through coastal highway. So it has been coming with time, and we had governments, everyone has been chipping in something, and I would say that now already we are at the peak of our engagement with Chinese over CPEC, and we're going into phase 2 of the CPEC, which we can talk more in detail.
Well, I'm glad you brought up phase 2. So in terms of this government's priorities, you've already mentioned ML1. Now, we're also thinking in terms of Pakistan to China, a freight corridor. Do we have other railways in mind which might connect us to China, for example, other than the ML1? We are all hearing about ML1, but what are the other projects on the railway front?
Well, ML1 is actually on the main railway line that we have. But you know, we have other railway lines also. So they are already in our planning with the Railway Ministry and the Planning Commission. They're thinking of connecting Gwadar with Quetta. From Quetta, we already have a railway line up to Rodi Sakar. And then we are also thinking of upgrading our railway connection with Iran.
This is all under CPEC?
No, so far it's all part of the planning. You know, for bringing something into CPEC, you need to understand the mechanism. The mechanism is that everything that we want to bring under CPEC is jointly decided between the two countries through a forum called Joint Coordination Committee, JCC. So anything that we do, we have joint working groups. We decide in joint working groups, then we take the project to JCC, and once it is approved there, then it is clear for financing engagement and execution.
So you have certain railway lines that you're thinking potentially that might fit under there. You talked about Gwadar. Now, Gwadar, we have a port that's supposed to be established and the free zone. How far are we on that?
Well, Gwadar has been an area of emphasis. Like when you ask that what is our big accomplishment, I would say approvals of ML1 has been one. But other than that, there has been a great progress on Gwadar port and Gwadar city itself. You know, recently we started construction of Gwadar International Airport. This is going to be one of the largest airport of Pakistan. $230 million of grant, and this is now all considering the prospects of Gwadar city and port itself. Then we had the free zone come up over 2,400 acres. There has been a lot of progress in construction of free zone. They're doing the infrastructure. Plus, despite COVID, we've seen interest of various companies come. There are companies from China which have already committed, and now we have companies from Gulf also who are approaching. There are companies from the Western countries who are approaching, who want to come into Gwadar free zone. We have the Gwadar city's master plan already worked out by a Chinese consultant company, and now is ready for launch. It has already been approved by the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. So now we're going into launch of that master plan, its execution in Gwadar.
I also read somewhere that you're going to make Gwadar into an oil city. What does that mean?
Well, that's an area which has been designated for an oil refinery and oil storage. This is between Gwadar and Pasni, about 30 kilometers outside Gwadar city.
Okay.
So this is along the coastal highway and also has an access to the sea. So I think this is one very big facility which will be set up in the field.
What are the other projects that you're implementing in Baluchistan under CPEC?
Well, Baluchistan has again been an area of focus. One is the connectivity to Baluchistan, which is also called the Western Route.
Okay.
So there is a road which is coming up from Islamabad to DI Khan. Then there is another road which we are now taking next month to JCC, which is from DI Khan to Zob. And then from Zob to Quetta is another road which has been already groundbroken by the Prime Minister. The money has been allocated, the land has been acquired, and the tender has been floated, and I think within this week maybe it is awarded as well. So we will have a connection from Islamabad to Quetta. Just imagine.
How long is that expected to, when do you see that happening?
Well, the work from Quetta Zob is already starting very soon. It is already in progress from Islamabad to DI Khan. And the one that we are taking to JCC from DI Khan to Zob, I think this should start early next year. That's how.
So I'm from AJK, and we hear a lot. We're very keen on when you're going to start some of your CPEC work there. You have the TetraM project, which is the road which is going from Mangla to Mirpur to Muzaffarabad and Montserrat, and then also the SEZ. When do you see any timeline on that? Have you placed any times on when you might start
I'm glad
working?
you brought that up. You should be a very happy person then if you're from AJK, because we just concluded 2 agreements. One on Kohala, 1120 megawatt power project, hydel power project, and the other was Azad Patan hydel power project, which is 701 megawatt. So both these projects are located in AJK. We have another one called Mahal, which is again in AJK. So these 3 projects are also doing a lot of corporate social responsibility in AJK, plus they're generating a lot of revenue for AJK government because of the water usage agreement. So I think these projects done. We have the TetraM road also in our projects. But I think we first focus on the projects of energy, because the Prime Minister's vision was to go towards cheaper electricity. So we moved from coal to hydel power projects. So this was the best potential area that we went in for. And we've concluded those agreements. Also, these agreements will bring $4 billion of investment to Pakistan.
Interesting. So Prime Minister's big focus is on creating jobs and having, and we're trying to do this through the process of industrial development. We're seeing SEZs being set up in Pakistan. We've said 3 are prioritized, but they're very slow. The timelines just seem to be, extended forward each time. Recently, last week, I think we saw the inauguration of Rashakai. The Allama Iqbal Industrial Society was inaugurated earlier this year. Why is the timeline? Why are we working so slowly on creating the SEZs? What's the hindering factor for you?
Well, I would say that it's not very slow. We had the groundbreaking of Faisalabad SEZ in January, and the total land mass is about 3,000 acres. About 1,500 acres have already been either committed or sold by various companies, and the development work has already started. Similarly, we had the development agreement signed between the KPK government and a Chinese company called CRBC.
Right.
The allocations have been made for the utilities, which are now already in progress. So the groundbreaking will be done soon, and it's a total 1,000 acres. We are also now almost ready for Dhabeji next to Karachi. So these were the three priority SEZs.
Why did we specify that these were going to priority SEZs? Was there a particular reason that these were the three chosen out of the 9 total SEZs under CPEC?
Yeah, I would say it is because of the potential, not 3, but actually there are 4.
Okay.
Rashakai is in KP,
Right.
and it shows a lot of promise with the opening towards Afghanistan, where we see now peace coming in, inshallah, where Pakistan has a great role that it has played.
Right.
It will open our access to Central Asia. Similarly, we have, that was in north, then we have one in the center in Faisalabad. You know, Faisalabad, as it has a reputation of a great industrial city, so there is a lot of potential and promise there. And then Dhabeji, surprisingly, I have seen maximum promise there because of its close proximity to the port.
Okay.
So a lot of interest already, not only from the foreign investors, but also from local investors.
I'd just like to get your final comments on some matters which are close to the Prime Minister's heart. The socio-economic development projects that he talks about, or increasing agricultural productivity. What is the role that CPEC Authority can play in these issues?
Well, I would say that first of all, now we are talking of phase 2, which is the mass industrialization, agriculture, science and technology, IT, and socio-economic development. All these sectors in this phase have a potential employment opportunity for the people of Pakistan. The Prime Minister has always emphasized on 2 things. One, generate our own employment so that our people don't have to go anywhere else for getting employment. And we have a huge youth bulge. We want to consume all of them here. We want them to be productive, be prosperous for their families, and remain yet closer to their families. And secondly, he wants prosperity to spread across the masses for common people of Pakistan.
Right.
So that has been his focus, and CPEC is all focused on that in the best interest of the people of Pakistan.
General Asim, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.